Hello, I'm Natasha, a videographer in Buenos Aires. I'm here with James Billings, founder of Trustarte. We are here to ask him a few questions about Trustarte, to know a little bit about different types of trust and a little bit about the history. Pour ceux qui parlent en français, nous aurons une traduction de cette vidéo par écrit. Para los que hablan en español, tendremos una traducción escrita de ese video. So, James, what do you do?
What we do is we help people with their assets, entitled to their assets. That's really primarily what we do with Trustarte, because what we discovered was that the way that you own an asset, whether it's a home or whether it's a business or it's a bank account, there's really not been a whole lot of discussion about that. It's sort of a casual discussion that you might have with one of your investment advisors or your real estate broker. And so our niche, our very small niche, is to provide investors and business people with a way to hold title to different valuable assets that they have. And it's different than other types of organizations that people typically have, such as the corporations or LLCs that we have in the United States, or some people may be familiar with the SRL, the SPA designations that they have in other countries. And so that is primarily what our niche is, which is to give people an opportunity to use a method of holding title, if you will, to assets in a private, more quiet way.
And how did it all start?
Well, it was part of what I was mentioning just a moment ago, and that is that as in business myself, as a stockbroker many years ago in the early 80s, and then later as a real estate broker, also in the aviation business, what I realized was that when people go to buy a home or they go to buy stocks, one of the questions that comes up is, how do I title my shares, or how do I title my home, or how do I title my real estate property, or how do we set up my business? What's the business structure? And so what I realized is that there really wasn't much conversation, there wasn't much narrative about that particular topic. It was very cursory. And if you think about it, there's really no incentive for your real estate broker or for your title company or escrow company, for your lawyer, your attorneys, or your investment advisors to really dig into that. There's no incentive for them to do that, because their whole purpose is to make the transaction, to make things happen. And so what I realized after quite a number of years and some research and some terrific mentors was that this topic just really doesn't get discussed. And now we have all of the assets that we own, or many of them, are available to look up on the internet. So the internet has changed everything. And so what I realized with clients and also myself was that people need a different way to own valuable assets with some sense of financial privacy. And so once we established that, then we looked for the instruments, the tools, or in the reason it's called Trustarte is that we use a variety of different colors, if you will, to create a custom combination or custom solution for myself or for clients as well. And as I use these trust instruments, we have a trust for a business, we have a trust for real estate, we have a trust for your estate, which people know as a living trust. There's also other trusts that are specifically for holding maybe like a car collection or antiques, if you will, valuable ones that you can use them to do that. So you have the paperwork that goes with the asset itself, and then you make changes, you run a business, to it.
What do you mean by trust?
One of the problems with the word trust, and people hear this word, well, what is a trust? And really, the way I reframe it is what is it that you're trying to do? The trust is a technical term. And so we'll just use that for later, but let's use an example of like a living trust. But again, take the words and put them at the back. What are you trying to do? Okay, a couple, a guy, his wife, they're married. And so really what they're trying to do is they're trying to set up a plan so that when one of them or the other or an individual passes away, that the assets that they have, whether it's a house or brokerage account, what have you, gets passed on to the right people. So that's the function of what you're trying to do. So you're trying to pass ownership from you to someone else after you pass away. So that's really what you're trying to do. And then what we do is that we create the paperwork to make that happen. So in that particular situation, the person that is still alive will say, these are all my things, this is all my stuff, and here's the other person that I want to administer all of my assets and make certain that they get to my kids or make certain that they get to my business partner after I pass away. And so what you're doing is you're trusting this other person to do what you ask them to do and to pass your assets on to this third party. Sometimes the person that you're trusting to do this, they can also, benefit in some of your generosity or some of the assets that you want to pass along. Well, like a husband and wife, for instance. So the husband passes away, now the wife is the trustee for the estate. Typically assets pass from husband to wife, and there's not any problem with that. But if you're going to do a formal estate plan, then the wife would be the trustee, the person that takes over after the husband dies, and then the assets, would be for the kids, if you will. But then sometimes you also have situations where you have like a second marriage, a second or third, so you have, children from your first marriage. You're now married to your second wife, okay, but normally if you're married, then all the assets go to your spouse, but you want some of your assets to go to your kids from your first marriage. So those are some of the things that need to be thought about in what we call split families, so that the kids from your previous marriages, are taken care of, if that's what you want to do. So it's just laying out a plan of how you want to get those assets distributed. In the case of like a business, we use the business trust, which is an alternative to the corporations and the LLCs. And that has a different purpose than what a living trust does. There's also a different trust for holding title to real estate, leases, mortgages, title to a home itself. So there's different ones. So you asked the question, what is a trust? It's this relationship that you have with a second person that administers or cares for your assets for the benefit of a third person or fourth or fifth, what have you. And so the trust itself is really kind of, again, secondary. So, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? And then we have a trust relationship among the parties, and that's sort of how the term came about.
Well, thank you very much for answering all our questions. And if you have any other doubts or any question, you can visit the Trustarte website, and see you in the next video.
All right, thank you.
Bye.